Okay, everyone, how's it going? It's our Wednesday night live, and I'm so excited to share everybody with this topic, which is you're getting on my nerves. Now, the reason why I decided to do that, this is all Tasia's fault. If you've seen her in the IV room, we have a great time. And I was saying, hey, I need to do something about nerves. And she kind of made this little joke about, hey, you're getting on my nerves. And so that's what we decided to name our program tonight, is you're getting on your nerves. But really what it is, you guys, is everything nerve related. And there's some great things I'm so excited to share with you about what you can do at home for anxiety and depression. So like that's totally a nerve condition. And then what you can do for nerve pain like sciatica and carpal tunnel. And then also what we can do for things that go south, which we call neuropathy and you know, in your hands or feet. And then if it gets in up here, we call that macular degeneration, wet and dry, and some other things. So I wanted everybody to welcome to the You're Getting on My Nerves. Now, I want to give some special shout outs, and this is going to be really fun because I usually put the program together by myself, and it's always stressful. This time I got some help because my boys are home from college, so I just wanted to show everybody. This is Miles. So I'm really proud about Miles. He wants to go into healthcare. He just finished school, and I'm really proud of him. They got straight A's. And this is my other producer. This is Dalton. So Dalton's running Facebook and email. Miles is helping me with the text. And by the way, Dalton wants to be a doctor, and he got straight A's. So like this is, I'm just really excited to brag on them and that they came home and they're helping me. So it makes things a lot easier. Remember, you guys, it's the Wednesday night program. And we're going to be talking about nerves. I have a special request. I'm excited to share everybody next week. Like I usually, kind of the inspiration comes in the middle of the night, but I have a special request to do anemia. And so that's what we're going to do next Wednesday night. Blood levels, red blood cells are so important, both if they're too low, and anemia causes fatigue and just not building enough red blood cells. And then, of course, if you have the other end of the spectrum, it is something called hematochromatosis, which is basically iron poisoning, too much red blood cells. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. Right now, we're going to be talking on you're getting on your nerves. Now, a couple of requests, everyone, is number one, can you just let me know if you're there? I can see some comments, and it helps if you want to talk about a special topic. That's something you can put. If you would do a hashtag where you're from, or, you know, like I had a patient reach out to me and say, look, please talk about anemia. And so anyway, please give me some comments. It gives me wonderful feedback. And don't be bashful in saying what you learned either from the lives. It doesn't always have to be a request, but please give me some comments on that. So we are so excited to go into nerves, because nerves are your electrical system. And so I'm going to bring up my little presentation over here, and I'm going to talk about nerve reboots. And you guys, I'm going to talk about some patient success stories. Now, when it comes to nerves, nothing surprises me. Like you can have chronic headaches, you can have anxiety, you can have depression, you can be going up and down. I got to make sure that I'm on the screen when I'm doing this. There's an enormous effect on hormonal health. And so that's all nerve related. And I want to talk to you guys. The most important thing you can do for nerve conditions, which I could argue is about anything, arthritis, stomach problems, again, hormone health, thyroid problems. There's just everything's tied up in that, is nerve memory. So it's just really important to be aware of that. Nerve memory is the cause of so many health conditions. And I'm going to share with you guys tonight what happens when you can reset that. And it's not just me saying that. I've got some couple of really cool stories that I'm going to share with you about that. And here is the cool, frustrating part about that is most healthcare providers don't know what nerve memory is. So let me walk through why this is so important and how you can reset it. I just had a perfect example about it today of a guy that had broken his wrist. So right here, and they'd gone in and they had plated it because it was shattered, which I think is of course the right thing to do. But then he has no extension. He can't move it. And one of the things, he had a big scar right here. And today was our second treatment. I went in, I'm like, look, I'm going to reset that scar because scars cause problems with nerve memory. Like, it's such a huge problem to have that. And so we did a special B vitamin. We injected the scar, and it came back, and like, you would not believe how soft and nearly like gone, like it disappeared. That's what happens when you reset nerves. And so here's an example. Like, that was just a really neat outcome. He's not better, but he's got significant improvement. So here's what I need to tell you about nerves. Again, anxiety, depression, stomach problems, infertility is a huge one. I'm going to show you an infertility case in just a minute of what happens when you can get the nerves and everything to reboot. So every once in a while, I'll have a rodeo or rancher guy comes into the office, and he'll be out practicing roping, and he'll get the rope caught around the finger, and the cow takes off, and bam, it pulls his finger off. Now, he'll come in and frequently will say, man, my finger's killing me. Like, it won't even be there. And what's happening is we've injured the nerve. It's called neuropraxia. And the nerve where it used to be is telling the brain, I hurt. We have the cycle that's just going on and on and on. It can happen with that. It can also happen with phantom gallbladder pain, where people get their gallbladders taken out and then they still have pain. It can happen with an amputation. And the patients will say, look, my foot or my finger, my hand, it's killing me. And when that happens, it's because the nerve system gets reset in that vicious loop. Well, a lot of times in healthcare, so many times people have the same problem. What occurs is they have nerve memory, and it's blocking organ function, or it's making it so that that shoulder problem won't go away, or they're chronically spraining their ankles, or they've got neuropathy where they just have numbness down their legs. And so let's start talking about that. So this, like, we could make this topic like enormous because there's so many nerve conditions, but I'm just kind of hit the highlights. So as we go through the presentation, I'm going to take anxiety, depression, and stomach problems, because so many neurotransmitters are in your stomach and they affect your brain. So that's one part. Then we're also going to talk about pain patterns. We're going to talk about neuropathy. And then if you just want to live your life right up here, like, I want to share that with you too. And then what you can do at home. And then if you're up the street or across the country, like, I want to tell you what you can help your provider to know, and then also some of the advanced treatments in the office. So we got a lot of stuff to go over, that I just want to make sure that I share with you what I know. So I'm going to go on the journey and invite you to go with me. With that being said, let's just start jumping into some slides that I've prepared. And I'm just going to share with you this, if I can get here it is. Okay, the nerve conditions. So neurotransmitter conditions, which I think are enormous impact on health. And that's why so many times when people say, look, I can't get out of this brain fog, or I have anxiety or depression, I'm all over the place, like, so much of it's stomach related. That's one thing. And then the next thing I want to talk about pain and pain patterns associated with nerves. And then the neuropathy, when you start getting the numbness in your hands or your feet. And sometimes it's chemoneuropathy, where it's an accidental side effect of conventional cancer treatments. Sometimes it's blood sugar related. And then sometimes there's this bad gene. You get bad information from your mom and bad information from your dad. When you come together, you just, like, it's a genetic expression. And then, like, eye problems, because eye problems, like, they're so important, because that's the nerves dying up here. And I enjoy taking care of nerve conditions, you guys. But one of my favorite things, and then you've seen Bobby Lee's story, you've seen Grant's story, and you see Mary's story of when you can help people to improve carpal tunnel. Now, it's challenging, but man, it's so fulfilling when you help people do that. So there's kind of our thing there. Now, I'm going to just blow up the screen here a little bit and go into some neurology here, because it is all about this little schematic here. So the schematic basically is that we have, and I can't even blow it up very well, like, we have these little junctions in our body called neurotransmitter junction, a nerve synapse. So you have this insulation, you have a nerve here and a nerve here, and it comes together. It kind of looks like a baseball mitt where a ball's coming into it. And that cleft is the neurosynaptic cleft. And if you have good nerve transmission that goes through there, a lot of things are really, really helpful, or you're getting a stimulation that's helpful. Now, if you have too many things going across this cleft right here, we call that anxiety. And forgive my patients 10 plus years ago, when people come in and say have anxiety, like, I'm embarrassed to tell you, like, a lot of times we'll be like, man, you just got to toughen up. What's wrong? Like, just power through it. I apologize to anybody that's had anxiety for how I used to be. Now, I can jokingly say that's because I was in my 30s, and when I got in my 40s, I got a lot smarter and stuff like that. But I'm going to tell you that I've had some mild anxiety and it was debilitating. I have some people in my life that have some significant anxiety, and it is really, really tough. Like, it can be debilitating, and it's because too many impulses are going across that synaptic cleft. Now, the opposite is if you don't get enough impulses, what happens? Excuse me. You get depression. Like, there's not enough impulses going on. And so that junction right there is so important. And then we have other conditions that attack the insulation around the nerve, like multiple sclerosis, and we can get autoimmune neuritis and some other things. And if we can reset that, there's some really new things. I'm going to walk you through how we reset that, but it's all about the nerve physiology. So going to a higher level here and looking at what would be a really good review for everything is going to be, okay, this slide. So here, you guys, if you have any nerve conditions, here's what the basics are. So let's just go through this here. One, we want to reduce inflammation everywhere. And the best way to do that is to eat as clean and healthy as possible. And I'm not trying to ruin anybody's life, but I know that I don't think I have any inflammation, but I know I feel a lot better in just how my hands move if I really pay attention to reducing wheat intake. And I don't believe I have celiac disease, or I don't believe I have a gluten sensitivity, but if I reduce inflammation, my hands work a lot better, and they don't throb. And then the next thing is sugar. And guess what, you guys, I like sugar just as much as the next person, but I have significantly reduced my intake of sugar. And the reason why is because I know up here that there's at least 108 ways that sugar ruins my health. Now, I'm not talking about fruit sugar from apples or oranges or anything like that. I'm talking about refined white sugar and high fructose corn syrup. So I really want to reduce those. Then I want to insulate the nerves. And you guys, this is how we insulate the nerves. We're specifically talking about omega-3s, 6s, 7s, and 9s. So your small, medium, and long chain fatty acids. We really want to get those in the system. I'm going to show you a good source to get those if you don't have a good source. I think the best thing of those is avocados. I think raw nuts are a really good source. I said not, be careful with dairy and white things, white sugar, white flour, and dairy. I always have to be careful with. But dairy is awesome if we don't ruin it. Like, I think that milk and cream, and eggs is kind of not really dairy, but it's protein. Like, if milk is prepared in the right way, I think it's fantastic. And what I mean by that, I think that skim milk is really kind of white chalk. It's not very good for you. Like vitamin D milk, and this is my opinion, I think raw milk is so healthy for you. It's really difficult to get a hold of, but I think that raw milk is really good for you. And milk is a great source if it's not bastardized and if it's not ruined. And so that's one really good place to get fat. Butter is a great place to get fat. Chicken noodle soup and beef stew are great places to get healthy fats. I'm also going to talk about that NHP, that natural hormone precursor therapy, and just a little bit of how you can get specific building blocks to insulate the nerves. And then we're going to reset the nerves, which is the presentation that's coming. We're in the middle of it. And we want to reduce stress. Now, whether it's reading or taking a drive or talking to yourself, which I think is really healthy, or prayer, meditation, exercise, gardening. I mean, there's so much, and people got to get it on their schedule. I had a person last week that came to the office and said, man, you just don't understand how stressful my life is. And I said, well, in a nice way, we all have the same 24 hours. Guess what? We all got stuff that we're working on. And she said, oh yeah. And then she told me, and I was like, holy cow, that is a lot. There was a lot of stuff going on, caregivers that she needed. Anyway, I really felt for it. I said, look, I don't have the answers, except let's just try and get 15 minutes of time to just really do something for you. Put everything aside. So from 2 to 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon, or from 7:30 to 7:45 at night, or whenever it is, that's your time. And you can even blame me. It's my fault. The doctor told me I have to get this time set aside. So I want to have a stress reliever. Now, the next thing. So here, you guys, I'm going to blow this slide up because I think this is really a neat way to understand everything. This is the nerve cell. Okay, so we have the axon that connects to the to basically the central nervous system. Then we have the nucleus on one end, and then all of these things, the myelin sheath right here in the middle. Like if you can see my pointer, I don't know if that picks up or not, but we want to really insulate those nerves. So anxiety, depression, carpal tunnel, sciatic nerve, scar tissue, peripheral neuropathy, and eye conditions, like we all want to just focus on, let's make that nerve as healthy as possible. So the healthier fats that you get into your system, and it's all fats. It's not just omega-3s, and it's not just omega-6s. It's all of them, and when you put them all together, you get this wonderful insulation around the nerves. And so I wanted to show you what the nerve cell looks like. And then there's a nerve reset therapy. Now I'm going to talk about how you use the special B vitamin to literally make the nerves open and to close and to reset. We call it neural therapy. But before I want to show you that, you guys, I got to show you a neat story about Corey. Now, some people, this is not physiologically possible to get the outcome that Corey's talking about because it's an infertility issue. And last time I checked, like men can't, really have babies. And so they're an important part of the process. Don't get me wrong. But Corey's case was on infertility, and it's just a fun thing to show people, like, it doesn't matter what the nerve condition is. You got to balance the system. So let's go over this and let's check it out. This is called a neural therapy reboot. And if you can get the body in balance and harmony and get those nerves to open, close, and reset, you get outcomes like this. So check this out. Hello everyone, Dr. Jason West and the West Clinic team. And one of the best things I've learned in healthcare is something called neural therapy. It's a way to reboot the nerves, and it works on so many conditions: autoimmune, hormones, pain, arthritis, and in this case, it's infertility. 3 treatments and 3 children. And if you have chronic disease, you should know about this therapy. So meet Corey, and here's her story. And so, Corey, we talked a little bit about this. I haven't seen you for a couple of years, so it was nice to reconnect. Yeah. That always means that I'm doing a good job when I don't see patients for a long time. But we were kind of going through the timeline, and you said, hey, I first came in about 2010. And what brought you in?
Well, I had 3 ectopic pregnancies before that, and one of them resulted in a tube being removed. So I only had 1 tube. And we were starting the path of fertility treatments, just barely getting into it when my mom suggested I come and visit with you.
And so you came in and we decided, hey, let's get rid of bad nerve memory, which is a treatment that we do called neural therapy. And then it was just fun to hear what you said happened, because what happened?
Well, I went home, and a couple weeks later took a pregnancy test, and well, more than a couple weeks, but the next month I was pregnant. And it was a viable pregnancy. It went full term and got a beautiful daughter out of it.
Okay, and she's 8 now,
She's right? 8, yes.
And then something else happened. You came back a couple years later.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of superstition, from going through the process the first time. Mm-hmm. But knowing that it worked, we wanted to have another successful pregnancy. And so we came right back and got a second shot. Within a couple weeks after that, got another positive pregnancy test and a son. So we have a little girl, a little boy, and then, because it can't be possible, but is it possible? What happens the third time? Third time, another wonderful pregnancy and another wonderful son. So I can't thank Dr. J enough. And if I could go to Vegas with this type of luck, I would go all the time. But it's not luck. Yeah. It's hard work and dedication and knowledge, and I just appreciate all that you have done for me and my family. So many times what happens for women is they get a bad memory inside the pelvis, and the body accepts that to be, quote, normal. And so just like if we called up tech support and we said, hey, we reboot the system, turn everything off, turn it back on, that's what we did for Corey. It's just a nerve reboot therapy, and these are the outcomes that we expect. I mean, we really have good outcomes with hormone imbalances and infertility issues. So Corey, thanks so much for allowing me to share this story of hope with other people. It's okay to put on social media. You bet. On an amazing infertility condition, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want information about neural therapy and hormone balance, please write super in the comment line. A complete write-up of this therapy is on my patient blog at dailydosevitaminh.com. Remember, you're not your diagnosis. There's always hope. We'll see you on the next video. This is Dr. West and the West.
Sorry, I had to get my music. I'm sorry, I muted the microphone. Now I'm back. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's infertility. It doesn't matter if it's irritable bowel syndrome. It doesn't matter if it's shoulder problems. You got to reset the nerves. And so when you reset the nerves, the way you do this is this advanced German technique called neurotherapy. So we take a glycolized ester of paraminobenzoic acid, which is a mouthful. We take basically a special glycolized component of a B vitamin, and you do the superficial technique where you basically come in and you inject the areas. And I was going to show you guys how to do the injection. And then I got feedback because I had done it on Miles before that it made some people sick to see like the needle going in. And then there's always a little bit of blood come out. So I'm not going to be able to show in my next video. If I got to figure out a way to get it to people that doesn't cause social media upsetness. I don't even know if that's a word. But that being said, the way you do it is you do these little tiny treatments over the areas. Like if you have a stomach problem, you blood the area over the skin because the nerve that comes down from the spinal or the brain, spinal cord, goes out through the organs and tissues, through the muscles, out to the skin. And we call it segmental therapy. If you stimulate the skin out here, because the brain, the nerves, and the skin all come from that same level, what happens is you can get the nerves to open up. You can get them to hyperpolarize and then depolarize and then repolarize. And it's just the most amazing therapy. And so we're going to walk through that a little bit more in depth. The other thing that's so important to do, and I've had so many chronic conditions go away from this, is to do something called scar therapy. So scar therapy, let me just go back one of these. Okay, scar therapy is there. It's literally dammed therapy. Now, what does that mean? Like if you have a river, water go through, as kids, we always do this. Like we block that area, right? We make these little puddles. At least I did when I was a kid. And that's a dam. So many times we have these energy levels, these meridian systems that are on top of the skin and in the skin and underneath the skin. When we cut those surgically, what happens? It creates an interference field or block. And so the nerve transmission is going like this. And so many conditions get better if you take this special B vitamin, a little tiny needle, and you inject the scar. You reset the scar. We did it with a patient last week with the wrist. I have seen chronic back conditions go away. So many times when people have a mole removal, what happens is they start developing an unusual healthcare condition somewhere else. It's not always the case, but a lot of times you reset that mole scar and their internal conditions get better. So it's just a fantastic way to stimulate the skin, which goes to the organs and the muscles, to the central nervous system, to the brain, and you get this wonderful reboot. Sometimes you have what happens called a lightning therapy. So I had another patient experience this with a chronic knee problem last week or 2 weeks ago, because today was the follow-up. But 2 weeks ago, he had this chronic problem. He's like, hey, my knee's now, it's not really a surgical case. And we went in and we reset some scars and some segmental therapy over his knee. And he's like, hey, what'd you put in there? You must have put in like a really strong anesthetic or marking, because I didn't feel it for a couple hours. And the reason why is because the nervous system resets. Now, sometimes it'll go back to bad habits, but if you reset it repeatedly, what happens is it goes away. So we call this treatment challenge what's called a Huneke phenomenon, which means that you work on the area and then you get a significant improvement, 8 hours, 20 hours. And if you repeat it a couple times, usually 3 to 4 treatments, you can really help with the nerve conditions. We just talked about this, a response. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a feeling where people are like, I feel a little bit worse. And then all of a sudden they feel better. That happens. And then sometimes you'll get an area to drain significantly. Let's talk about the reasons for getting this nerve reset. A lot of times it's really good for wound healing. I do it around the head like that. I actually have a video of me getting and treated myself, because what it does is it helps with brain fog and mental stamina and concentration. It's also really good to figure out if there's musculoskeletal pain or if there's muscle pain you can get. And so really this nerve therapy is about for everything. Now, there's also a way to do it without needles. So I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit, and we're going to talk about, some of the risks. Anytime you do a needle therapy, what happens is you can have some bruising. There's a really low incidence of allergic reaction, but when you start getting rid of nerve pain, like, you can really make a difference for people. Now, I know we're talking about a lot of in-office procedures, so let me talk about some things of how to help you outside of the office. Okay, now here we go. So nerve treatments, especially for anxiety and depression. Let's talk about what are the best things that you can do outside the office, what you can do inside of the office, and some treatments that maybe you don't know about. Anxiety and depression should be treated differently. This is really frustrating when I have patients come in, especially when they're not responding to conventional prescription therapy, because anxiety is too many impulses going through the neurosynaptic cleft. Depression is when you don't get enough, right? So like they're opposite ends of the spectrum. So when doctors just prescribe, hey, take this the antidepressant therapy with people that have anxiety, like it doesn't make sense to do that. And the one size doesn't fit all. I'm not opposed to medications or treatments. I just want to try and balance things first. With anxiety, there's so many times that there's a blood sugar component and there's an underlying what's called neuroglycopenia. Now, neuroglycopenia is a fancy way of saying when the nerves fail, like when the blood sugar drops, the nerves fail and you freak out. And so many people don't feel very good when they have these up and downs of anxiety. And then when their blood sugar drops and the nerve system fails, it really aggravates this. I think this is a classic part of attention deficit disorder. I think it's also a part of so many times when people are like, man, I get feeling up, like I get anxiety, then I eat something, it gets a little bit better. And sometimes I start feeling blue. It's because the blood sugar is fluctuating. So get the blood sugar to stabilize. And one of the best ways to do that is to get your body in order here. And when I say order, like go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time. We really want to nourish the nerves. And I kind of have a broken record because I think that's important with every condition is to go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, eat as healthy as possible, and get lots and lots of water. Dr. Batman GD, one of my heroes that was practicing in the Middle East, and when there was a takeover, he got thrown into prison, wrote a book called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. So one of the best ways to help emotional roller coasters is to hydrate the body. And so many times people say, well, I get it. I just don't want to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, well, what happens is when you start putting all that water in your system, everything starts to go out for a time period. Your body's like, great, I'm going to dump all this junk out. And then it kind of reshifts. And it's just really, really good for you, water. Now, I want to talk about what we can do for neuropathy, and because that's another one. Then we're going to talk about pain. So neuropathy is when the nerves start to they just disintegrate. And a lot of times, one of the best ways to describe it to people is when you're younger and you get your hands really, really cold, and you go inside, and what does everybody tell you? Don't put them in hot water. You got to let them warm up normally. Or I had my mom would always say, well, you put cold water until you feel it, and then let them just dry up, or let them dry off, and then they'll start to warm up. But when you put your really cold hands under hot water, what happens is they hurt because all of a sudden the nerves start to fire, and that's what neuropathy feels like. It's really, really uncomfortable. A lot of times people will say, I feel like I'm walking on wadded up socks or dirt clods. And that's what happens when it goes south. But what is the flip side? What if it goes north? What if you have nerve problems going this way? Well, what happens is you get macular degeneration where the nerves that are going to the eye, dry macular degeneration is when you're not getting nutrients and oxygen stuff to the eye because the nerves are dying. And then what happens is wet macular degeneration, a little bit different, but you get too much hemorrhaging and blood and stuff in the eye, and then you lose your central vision. You can see on the outside, you can't see in the middle. And so with any neuropathy conditions, reduce inflammation. You want to reduce white sugar and as much as possible. You want to insulate the nerves with omega-3s and 6s and 9s and 12s. Like you want to get all of that stuff inside of the system. Then reset the nerves with the injection therapy, the neural therapy that we just showed you. And then in some advanced cases, some infusion therapy is really helpful. And infusion therapy is skipping the stomach and dumping in vitamin C, B5, B6, which are your feel-good B vitamins for the nerve health, B12 to help modulate. Sometimes there's a consideration for a clean-out therapy or glutathione therapy. And so that's kind of what we're doing with neuropathy. Now, for pain, when people have sciatic pain, when they have carpal tunnel, and they have some other things, let's start working on the nerve condition. And I forgot to write in here, and this is really important, is scar therapy. So like scars block energy flow. Remember, it's a different type of tissue. It's a different electrical charge around it. And as those impulses of energy are going up and down the body, scars block that. And I think it's so important to reset scars. And that's the scar neural therapy, again, helping the body to open and close and reset those nerves. But when I talk about order in the body, again, getting everything lined up, living as healthy as possible, I think is the first step. The next thing is the neural therapy. And then we want to insulate the nerves with omega-3s, 6s, 7s, and 9s. So where you get those in your diet is avocados, pure compressed olive oil, cold pressed olive oil is really good. I think eggs are really good. And I think the way to do that, and this is just my opinion, is like a poached egg, I think is the best way to eat an egg, with making sure the yolk's just a little bit runny. I think that it denatures the proteins to have, scrambled eggs and over hard eggs. And this is just my opinion. I think you got to have a little bit of liquid inside a poached egg. And I think you got all that lecithin and fats. So I think that's a great way. I also think chicken noodle soup. I think beef stew is really good. Raw nuts. I said this already, avocados, like get all of that stuff into your system. Now, so many times when we start talking of fat and insulating the nerves, especially female patients will say, well, I don't want to get fat. I'm like, no. When you eat fat, it doesn't mean you're going to get fat. If you mix fat with carbs, bad things will happen. Now your body will start to insulate. And a perfect example of this is if you take a piece of toast and you put fat on it, which is butter, you may be able to get away from that. Like I have some concern, like I'm not sure exactly if I like that approach for breakfast. But if you want to make it really bad, you turn it into cake. And how do you turn it into cake? You put jam on it. And now you have your carbs and you have your fats, and then you have, basically inflammatory food. And so many times we accidentally will add stuff to it. So be really careful with inflammatory foods. And then with the neural therapy, you can start resetting nerves by working on the reset therapy with the little tiny injections. You can also do deeper nerve and plexus. There's one way to reset the nerves of the leg, the femoral nerve. There's a way to reset the sciatic nerve. You can do the lumbar chain ganglia, the stellate ganglion, which is the nerves in the back. And then there's nerves in the neck. You can do around the head to reset things. You can do any scars in the body are important to reset those. And it's amazing the medical miracles that will happen. Now, I kind of say that, like this, because medical miracles are when something happens, but you don't know why. So maybe a better way to say it is to have these anticipated medical outcomes, because when you change scar therapy, you can really change people's lives. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is, so we did nerve treatments, anxiety, depression, balanced neurotransmitters, and really help to put building blocks inside of the system, put your life in order, water, and I don't want to minimize or invalidate any concerns with anxiety and depression. I just want to support that system. And sometimes I'm very successful in helping people no longer need prescriptive medicines. Other times when we start doing this, it makes the prescriptive medicines work. And in other times, what I'm trying to do for people may just not be what they need because they may not respond to it. So I want to be really careful when we talk about anxiety and depression. It's rewarding to take care of, but sometimes you do one approach, you do a blended approach, or maybe it's not something that is helpful. The next thing, though, the neuropathy is I love taking care of this. You insulate the nerves. We're going to talk about that DNA blueprint that you can get out of the system, and also reset nerve infusion therapy, pain, put your body in order, reset the nerve, insulate them. Alpha lipoic acid is another really good, DHA, omega-3, 6s, 7s, 9s. Okay, so let's go through a couple wrap-ups here on nerve health. And remember, just to kind of house cleaning items, this is the Dr. West Clinic program every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. I'm going to go as much as possible to live that inside of our West Clinic community. And then also, I'm going to show you how to get access to some of the services and stuff like that. Next week, we're talking about red blood cells, the trucks on the freeway that pick up supplies from town to town. We're doing something on anemia. But let's go through and I'll show you guys where you can access some really neat stuff here. All right. How you access some really good things is to go to the West Clinic website, and I will tell you where you can access this or what is equivalent inside of your cupboard, because I don't care where you get it. I just want to make sure that you get a good source. So when we start talking about nerve insulation, let's go here to this right here, and I'm going to show you where you can get some good sources. So some good sources of things to do here. Wow, my mouse is super sensitive. Here we go. Okay. All right. Good outcomes for this. The better source of fats you can get in your system without doing carbs, the better outcomes you're going to have with chronic nerve problems. Okay, everybody, I apologize for losing people. I hope I'm back because I didn't mean to do that. Okay, I got to make sure that I'm not too quick on the trigger here. All right, you guys, here we go. West Clinic banner here. Man, I did this last time. Shoot. Okay, here we go. This is how you get the best access to the things that we were talking about for nerve health. All right, here we go. I apologize for disconnecting us. If you have a nerve condition, we want to insulate the nerves. And by the way, before I forget, this is a big plug for vitamin D. I have no vested interest or anything like that in vitamin D, or I don't have any affiliations with companies that sell vitamin D. But vitamin D, by the way, is so good for health. And I really hope everybody will consider doing that. For me personally, it's 5,000 to 10,000 units of vitamin D. I've seen it really help chronic nerve problems. The other things that are really popular on the market, curcumin, I think is a natural anti-inflammatory that's really helpful, and also turmeric, things like marcozyme and wobenzyme, so this digestive enzymes that help chew up inflammation, are really good things to have. And where we left off before I disconnected us is I said, let me show you guys where you can get some things. So if you want a good source of things to help with nerve conditions, if you go to the West Clinic and then go into the shop area, and inside of the shop area, you'll see something exactly like this. You'll just see a little login that comes up, and then you have my book that's there. And again, if you're taking essential fatty acids, make sure it's a blended. It's not just fish oil. You want to have fish oil and flaxseed oil and evening primrose oil. I think those are so important to insulate the nerves. And then what we can do here as we are looking for things, if you go into the shop area on the website, you go in here to patient only supplements and you just click right here, and it'll come up, and then it'll ask for a passcode. Now, because I have an established relationship with my patients inside of the forum here, you just click West Clinic. Let me see if I can show you the password code here. Here we go. And you just type in West Clinic in this password area. And then what happens is you have access to the entire store. Whoops. And you can get everything at, and you can get combined shipping, and there's some ways that you can save things and stuff like that. So if you would like a good source of essential fatty acids, you come here and you can just type in, I like Ultimate Omega is my favorite way to get fats inside of the system. But most important, you guys, is we want to be looking for something called neurotrophin. Now, the reason why I think neurotrophin is so important is because it gives you the building blocks. It's the best thing associated out of cow nerves, and I think there's some pig nerves associated with it. And you give that to the body, and it gives them a blueprint to help restore nerve function. So I think it's just about the neatest thing that you can have for nerve health is the, for the nerve health is neurotrophin. And anyway, that's the one thing. The other one is you want to stabilize blood sugar. And so if I come in here, there's something called blood sugar all-in-one. So if you have access to the store, you guys, let me just tell you about the things that are really helpful. Now, I don't have all of the best products. I want to encourage you to find the best products. If I can help you do that, that's great. Stabilize blood sugar. a good multivitamin and multimineral. Here's the test. If you have something that you take and you notice a difference, you should keep taking that. If you take a multivitamin and then you don't see any benefit, it's probably an idea where you should throw away the pills and eat the bottle. At least you'll get something to kind of scrub out your GI system. The other things, high doses of vitamin D levels are really good. And then alpha lipoic acid and what they call DHEA. So ALA is something that helps to protect nerves and build up the myelin sheath and the nerve transmission and stuff like that. And then be careful with your sugar corrections. Now, that being said, it's kind of a real quick overview of our of nerve health. So I want you to be aware, order in your system, insulate the nerves, neural therapy where you can get to the injection therapy. And then also what we can do is help things that help to reset all of the different types of nerves and things inside of the system. Now, I'm going to show you one last clip here on what neural therapy is, and then that we'll be wrapping up our show. And okay, I guess I won't because I don't have the clip in there. Well, all right. Next week, we are going to talk about anemia and why blood is so important. If you have an area that you'd like us to focus on, please put that in the comments. If there's a video that you'd like us to make over a healthcare condition, I'm really excited about that. Now, we are going into a special question and answer period with our Thriver program. And what that means is I have people that I work specifically with every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. We do an exclusive question and answer period. If you would like information on becoming a Thriver or working with me to the next level, it's thewestclinic.com. You can get all the information over there. We're going to be talking next week at anemia. I want to give a special shout out to Dalton and to my son Miles for helping me produce the program. And tomorrow, by the way, we have a live patient inside of the studio. We're going to talk about how you can create these anticipated, expected medical and patient outcomes. Tomorrow, I'm excited for you. It's kind of a mystery guest because I just want to make sure everything lines up to be here. It's going to be a fantastic outcome. I'm Dr. West, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday night at 6 o'clock to talk about red blood cells and anemia. The people that are in our Thrive program, we'll see you guys over in the Thrive program at 7 o'clock for a question and answer period. We'll see you guys later.